Are you just pro 100% in the office, or are you pro 100% remote? If I don't see you working, then I don't have anything to do. So what's my purpose? The whole separation between work time and personal fun time becomes a lot more hazy if when you work and you live and you hang out with friends and family all at the same place. The fact that this guy before 2020 was working 2 days remote and 3 days in the office, I am jealous. Hello, and welcome back. As a recruiter, it is absolutely crucial that we keep our pulse on the markets, the different trends, and what exactly is happening is that can absolutely affect our candidates, hiring managers, and our business, and of course our career. As you know, since 2019, for the most of us, all we knew what work equaled in office. 3 years in now, remote. The word remote is now absolutely mainstream, and companies are doing whatever they can to figure out where on that spectrum that they lie, whether it's fully remote, whether it's office, or whether it's somewhere in between. But whatever that they decide, ultimately it affects the workers, the employees, the people on the team. So let's go through a recent story together. We'd love to also hear your thoughts. Let's dive right in. So the title of this article is "A Baby Boomer Who Quit His Six-Figure Job Rather Than Return to the Office as Managers Are Threatened by Remote Work and Just Want People Back So That They Can See Them Working. Dennis C. would rather retire than return to the office full-time, and that's exactly what he did. If that is something that you want to do and you aspire to do, comment down below. Are you fully remote? Are you hybrid? Or are you pro in office? This 65-year-old native basically said in 2018, higher-ups at his job handed a day of remote work out as a reward, which is really interesting. You have to understand, for the most of us, when the word remote came, we just thought this was like a new innovation or an absolutely new phenomenon. But you have to understand the concept of remote work has been around for a long time. But for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you, the first time that we heard it was probably in the past 3-4 years when this whole thing absolutely blew up. So what I found interesting here is that in 2018, that this particular company was using it as a reward. Of course, everyone was forced to be in the office, but then they used it as an incentive, as a prize, as a good job. In terms of like a main pivot, whether or not the employees had to go in the office full-time or not. In 2019, he was working 2 days remotely and 3 days in the office. I mean, this is before everything happened. So if you had a chance, if you knew of anyone that had a chance of working semi-remote, hybrid, or fully remote before 2019, comment down below. Please let me know what industry, what do they do? Because I think, man, if I knew of remote work and that it actually existed, I would have been more proactive in trying to find a remote job, albeit probably been a lot more difficult because it's not as plentiful as it is today. But the fact that this guy before 2020 was working 2 days remote and 3 days in the office, I think that's absolutely incredible. I am jealous. It further said that his schedule was fantastic. I mean, I totally would agree. And he thought he'd never retire. Now, this is perfect. This is heaven. If that's your definition of heaven, couldn't disagree with you there. But as 2020 rolled in and sent everyone home, he discovered he loved full-time remote even more. Please let me know, like, do you have experience working remote? And adding to that, do you have experience adding remote, and did your company change or modify its policy in the past 3 years? Now, either they're shifting it to hybrid or now forcing everyone in the office, and really, how did that affect you? For me, I had the absolute opportunity and privilege to be able to work from home. I welcomed and I was open-minded from working remote pretty quickly. I am originally from New York. I did the whole like subway into the office thing. I'm over it. I'm done. I can't see myself doing that. But at the same time, I know that there's a whole nother side or perspective where people love commuting to the office. They love physically being around their colleagues. So I think, of course, in an ideal scenario, there's a good medium. But is there anyone who's watching right now? Are you just pro 100% in the office, or are you pro 100% remote? Comment down below. Would love to hear your thoughts. I just happen to be more of an advocate for fully remote. I think companies and teams using the right tools and systems can still be productive, can still absolutely crush their goals on a fully distributed system. He then said, we went to 5 days a week, and it was like, oh, I thought 2 was good. 5 is the sweet spot. Dennis said, there's no reason to go back in the office. I agree. You know, this is actually quite timely because as we're shooting this right now, a lot of companies, most recently in the financial banks, are forcing everyone to come back into the office. Everyone has their own justifications. Everyone has their own reasons. But at the end of the day, would that mean a drastic outflow of people just quitting and leaving their jobs? Or would people mostly just stay put, really used to and banking on their constant and stable salary? He loved remote work for the same reasons he thinks other people do. More time to concentrate, fewer meetings. He could turn off his camera, mute, and still plug away. His commute went from 20 minutes to 5 minutes. My commute went from 45 minutes to 30 seconds, which is not for everyone, but I absolutely love it. I roll out of bed, into my bedroom, boom. turn on my computer, I'm starting to work. And I agree here. Being remote, I think, isn't for everybody, but for me, just being here by myself, understanding what I have to do every day, I'm just able to really put my heads down and really concentrate. Sure, there are times where I miss like hanging out with colleagues, but for the most part, I'm generally pretty happy. If I want to interact with people, I have friends, I have, my wife, I have social media if I want to kind of get that social hook. But I know that for a lot of people, and being a recruiter, I know this concretely because I talk to a lot of people every single week. Some people will just go absolutely crazy being alone at home working. But for me, I'm on the camp of just embracing remote stuff. In terms of fewer meetings, I don't know about that. You can still have a ton of meetings and not be productive at all, fully remote. But for me, it's all about good balance and making sure that, you have time to dedicate on what you really have to do and a certain amount of other times for meetings, etc. If I wanted to do something and it wasn't time constrained, I could stop work and pick it up later that evening. He said, yes, and that's also a fast track of burning out, which is one of the biggest knocks the critics have basically brought up against remote work. And I could, of course, attest to this as well. When you're working home, clocking in, clocking out, the lines become a lot gray instead of a clear black and white. There's no office, there's no home. The separation between office and home, the whole separation between work time and personal fun time becomes a lot more hazy if when you work and you live and you hang out with friends and family all at the same place. It really comes and brings the burden and the responsibility on your own shoulders to be able to time manage adequately and to be like, okay, at a certain amount of time, I'm going to stop working, put my phone and computer away, and then focus on my life and the people that I care about, the things I want to do. If you aren't good at that, it could easily be a burning out situation where work becomes all-consuming, and then you can work till 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m. Repeat that every day, every week, every month, every year. Not good for you. Physically, emotionally, mentally, and also professionally if you just end up just disengaging. He's not alone in that. Some remote workers are living like college kids, again, using their afternoons for leisure activities or errands, and then picking up later back in the day. I think, again, this is exactly what I said. It really comes down to how good you are in time management. Technically, if you work at a company with a really good trust culture, then you should be able to take breaks here and there and then just plug away on a schedule that's sustainable for you. With that arrangement, you can still do your best work. And if you have that space and understanding with the company that you're working at, and even the manager that you're reporting to, I think that's absolutely fantastic. That's a win-win. I think where remote starts to really shut down is where there's really a culture of distrust, a culture of just micromanaging and report after me and like everything that you have to Slack me. You take a little break, you have to go to the doctors, you get slammed by it. I think in those situations, it could be very, very difficult. So if you kind of lived through that, please let me know. We'd love to kind of hear your experiences. The more choice that we have, the more autonomy that we have, I think the happier that we are. I completely agree. But then in April 2021, he was called back to the office. The company wanted him to come in for 3 days a week. Dennis, who is technically eligible to retire and had already been looking for new roles, said it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think this is something I see a lot in the tech industry. We see a lot of companies rebounding to 2 to 3 days a week because, either fully remote was an absolute catastrophe for them, or they see other companies doing the same thing and they're just following just for the sake of following. There's a lot of different combination of what 2 to 3 days mean. Is it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Is it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Is it the middle, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, have Monday and Friday off? I think if you're used to fully remote and then you're forced now to come back into the office 2 to 3 times, I think that'd be very difficult. It'd be very difficult for me, and I'm sure it'd be difficult for a lot of people there too. Dennis had already secured a job offer elsewhere as a defense contractor. With the new role, he'd be taking a slight pay cut, bringing his salary from 6 figures to less, but since he receives new monthly retirement benefits from his old job, he's still technically bringing in more. His new role is also fully remote and a must-have for him. And this is absolutely true with the job market. People are willing to forego on a salary compensation increase if they're able to maintain a fully remote culture at another company. This is something that I'm seeing. If you're another recruiter, if you agree or disagree, please let me know. I think remote and non-remote is easily one of the top 3-5 reasons I see why people would stay at their job or look for something else, especially in the past 3 to 4 years. I think that companies that are really, really extreme on forcing employees back, I think either somehow remote really blew back on them and it was an absolutely horrible decision, or it's another way for them to kind of subtly push people out or have a lot of people quit so that they can kind of save on their burn, which is unfortunately something that we're seeing a lot here in tech and other industries. Or it could just be a combination of the above, and they genuinely do believe that the best way to maintain a productive workforce is to have some sort of hybrid. But to go from fully remote to fully in office, that is very, very extreme as well. You're going to, of course, have a lot of people leave. To go from fully fully remote to like 2 to 3 days in a week, that's again a seismic shift. With the fully remote and distributed workforce, one of the best things about it is if you also happen to work at a company that's really embraced that sort of distributed lifestyle, one of the main perks and benefits is that you're able to seriously just move to another state, to anywhere in the country, and technically work and maintain your job, which is like, I think, one of the coolest benefits. And so what happens is that a lot of people moved because of that, and then a lot of these companies are forcing people to go back. And so if you moved from New York to Montana, you moved from New York to Vegas, and then now the company's like, hey, everyone has to go back in the office, that would literally mean you have to physically move back to New York. And if you bought a house, if you've started a family, if you started preferring like your new quality of life better, you're gonna be put at a crossroads and really be asked tough decision. Do I move back or do I stay? What would you do? Dennis isn't alone. Felicia, an admin in Arizona, previously also told that she was leaving behind a 6-figure salary over a forced return to the office. Her bosses were suffering from productivity paranoia and cannot believe that people working from home were actually working. This is a legitimate, but also a problem that I'm seeing just everywhere. I think the hardest thing about remote is fundamentally owners and managers are like, is my team actually working? Because how do you check if someone's working? Traditionally, you just basically look at them. Are they slacking? Are they watching YouTube videos? Or are they actually working? But if you're fully remote, you have to really trust your team members that they're actually working, because there's now this new area of separation. Of course, because of that, there's a huge rise of a lot of monitoring and tools and asynchronous and desynchronous communication systems that you can have in place to make sure that people know exactly what to do, their expectations, and what they have to do every day, every week. But for a lot of people who are just used to the old way or the traditional way, and of course, it could depend on your industry and your business, a lot of people struggle with it. And they're like, having my team remote just freaks me out. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just paying out all of this salary. I don't know what's coming back. I think, again, a lot of variables to talk about here. It's not just a simple cut and dry remote and non-remote. I think it's all about managing expectations, communicating, creating a culture of trust, being able to really, have those necessary communication tools in place where if you need to communicate one way or two ways, people don't have any sort of restrictions or fear to do so. So there's a lot of variables to kind of think about. And it's, of course, not always a simple answer, but also seeing the employer side, this is definitely a valid reason. So if you have a founder, hiring manager who, that's going through the same thing, what are they doing aside from forcing everyone to the office to make them feel better about that whole situation? Dennis said that he thinks the only people who fully fail at remote work are those who went to meetings in person, walked around with a piece of paper and looked busy, but weren't actually getting much done. Self-starters and motivate people with goals can excel with remote work. I agree, but not everyone is a self-starter and not everyone is like truly motivated, right? I think you need to create just a broad stroke culture where anyone, regardless of background, regardless of what they do at that company, can be set up to succeed. Remote work also calls into question the purpose of a boss. He said a boss's motto, whether they voice it out loud, is to make sure their employees get work done. So those employees have to be there in front of them so the bosses can ensure they're working. It's almost, if I don't see you working, then I don't have anything to do. So what's my purpose? So I think that's the main driver of bringing people back. Yeah, I mean, if your sole existence is not to do anything and you just manage and you have to make sure your team's doing well and you're just not, educated or aware of all the tools and systems that you can use to monitor and communicate and keep tabs of your teammates, yeah, you could totally freak out. I totally get that. But this is 2023, people. There's so many tools and frameworks and systems that you can use so that you can adequately communicate, manage expectations, monitor performance, really create a fantastic culture and environment with your team. You just have to make the effort. There's no excuse there. With the pandemic, the remote work genie is out of the bag. At his old job, higher-ups once stole that remote work as a reward. Now there's a bunch of people who know they don't need to be in the office to do productive work. And that's the thing. If you, like me, know that I don't have to be in an office to be on my A game, why would you go back into the office in the first place, right? It's as simple as that. So find a job, find a company that can give you that space and opportunity and that trust from the get-go. Be like, you know what? This is what you need to do. You're crystal clear on it. Of course, we completely trust you and just let you go and just absolutely crush it, right? And then you have that confidence inside you that you can perform well regardless of whether you're in your living room, at a cafe, or in a physical office. And that's going to lead to a reckoning for bosses. The managers, especially the mid-level managers still, are going to want to see people. That's the kind of justification for their job, he said. If anyone can work remote, it's a new model for the manager. Yes, times are changing. Remote is forcing companies to evolve, and not just companies, everything else that constitutes what a company means. Teams, individuals, managers, hierarchy, and structure. So there's got to be a new definition of a boss, a new definition of a manager, a new definition of just monitoring performance, communicating, etc. I think it's really, really cool to be part of that transition. And if you're not making an active effort to understand and see what other companies are doing, and you're just siloed and you're just very old school traditional, you could be left with, a very unhappy workforce or no workforce at all when everyone else is just going to probably work for your competitors. Even as remote work has fallen off slightly, the Bureau of Labor Statistics found that nearly 72% surveyed companies offered little to no telework in September, compared to 60% in 2021. He still thinks it will slowly take over, especially as the office lease expired. And this could be a completely different video, but now what I'm also aware of recently is that companies that traditionally had 100% in-office policies are now struggling with what to do with their ginormous rent. When no one wants to go back in the office, people are quitting, and they still are on the hook for their beautiful office space. Like, what do they do with it? Do they keep it? Do they hold on to it? Do they, stay stubborn? Do they change it? Do they release it and get slammed with fees? Do they convert it, modify it, repurpose it? Like, what do they do? I think this really is kind of an era where things are changing. People are being asked the tough questions, and you have to be willing to pivot and adapt to the times. A lot of baby boomers were so on dire, he said. He added that as baby boomers leave the scene, so to speak, so will some of the traditions. I think a lot of people that have exposure to remote work will say, hey, that worked. I think the coolest thing about this article is that even though the specific case study was about a baby boomer, this applies to all of us, right? I think if you're working right now, you're either working fully in office, you're working fully remote, or some sort of in between. What do you like? What do you aspire for? Where do you see the whole remote thing going? And for companies that are just old school and traditional, do you think that they will slowly die out, like this article would say, or do you think that they will always stand the test of time? Again, for me and from my personal opinion, I love fully remote. I am also striving to create a team that's fully remote. I want to be able to create a team. If I went back in time, it'd be one that I'd be excited to join. And I realize now, starting this journey, it's a lot harder said than done, right? It's very hard to establish effective communications, to monitor performance, to establish clear communications, hierarchy, structure, fully distributed. But I'm willing and open-minded to make mistakes and take on the challenge, because this is something that I know that if I were to apply for a job right now, this is something I would actively look for. And in 2023, it is no excuse for a company to be really stuck in one way or another. I think times are changing. You got to change too. And I think most companies will probably entertain some sort of hybrid. But for those that are remaining fully remote and still crushing it and doing it, I think it's a wonderful role model and a source of inspiration. And it should be for those that are fully in office who really feel like remote is not going to go anywhere. So please let me know. Are you full remote? Are you full office? Do you like more of these just ad-lib reaction videos to current events? If so, I could totally do more. I really appreciate you guys. Please feel free to also follow me, as I try my best to also do behind the scenes content daily. And if you enjoyed this video, if I were able to even just make you smile for 1 second, please consider supporting a fellow recruiter. Give us a like, subscribe, click that bell. It really means a lot. We'll see you on the next one.